Okay, so this one, I talked about this upper one in the first video. And then um, instead, I'm going to focus on the guide tones between, um, changing bars. And I might adjust this, like it might be more important to play the... No, this makes sense. I think it's important to play the dominant chord into the minor chord. So these are the changes we want to emphasize. Um, so yeah, these are effectively, I'm going to call my target notes or my maps. So instead of thinking it like this, where it's a continuous, 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 continuous. Instead, I'm going to think about it like a blip to emphasize this, and then uh, we're going to guide it through the change at the last of the beats. So you might have like, C sharp, B, and then C natural. So you can focus on just this portion of the chord change. This is whatever you want. This is a chord change, and then this is the stuff that emphasizes the chord change. Let me just change colors here. It might be a little easier. So we just want to use, the 4 and the 1. Got a little bit bigger. Too big. There we go. So we just want to use the 4 and the 1 of the bars, the beats of the bars, to emphasize that chord change. And yeah, so then I thought, okay, and this is where it gets a little bit weird, and I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really seen this before, but I think it exists. Is that this starts to become an awful lot of space that I'm not really using. Like I'm just really going to improv in here. Um, and this is a lot of space to write down, whatever it is, 8 bars and 16 chords. So I thought, okay, and sometimes like more space is hard to visualize for me. So what I said is, okay, let me move it to one line, and that's where, and then I started experimenting with like the geometric shapes and patterns and stuff. I started to look a little bit weird. So I said, okay, let me start using square notation just to see what happens. Um, and then yeah, I came up with this style, which this and this is the same. So what I did up here is the same as down here, um, but I'm using square notation. Now you could have done this as circles and it would have been fine, but there's a reason why I'm doing this, is because I'm trying to get the sense of connection through the bar line when these chords change. Um, so like that's why I started thinking about um, compressing them together even a little bit more, and that's what we see here. And I started experimenting by having, plus signs as representing sharps and negative signs as representing flats or whatever, um, just so it can be in the block, so that I didn't have to um, have the sharp in front of it. It could be inside of the block. Um, So here's where it starts to look pretty good. But again, I'm sort of missing the connection between these two blocks, which is kind of the way I'm trying to think about it. And then here is where, okay, this is where I'm thinking this is starting to make a little bit more sense in my head. So anyway, yeah, I thought I would just share, just to give an example of stuff that oh, and there was one other thing. So this is all well and good. Um, and then I'm reminded by a really good jazz person in Halifax who said, maybe start thinking about them in terms of notes uh, instead of like note letters, instead of these more complicated bars, patterns, and spaces or whatever. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's what we do. Um, So here is what I've started to do down here, and I'm going to try a couple different methods for sure, to see what starts to resonate a little bit more with me. But the key is that C major 7, A7, um, D minor 7, G7. The key is that I'm really trying to figure out different approaches that begin to emphasize the connection between these two chords. Is what I'm sort of after. And so yeah, you start to take away all of the bars, spaces, and lines and stuff when you just start writing the notes. This is kind of an interesting approach down here, right? Like all of this information here, you've got to take in and digest, whereas then you're just like letters. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of interesting. E, C sharp, C, B, D, right? And then that's your C major 7, uh, A7, D minor 7, G7. So maybe that's what it is, right? That's pretty simple. Instead of this, and up here. But anyway, we'll try a couple of different methods, and like I say, the focus is whatever method makes me feel the most comfortable in emphasizing these chord changes. So yeah, a bit of an experiment, but I'd say.